Hi, it's Cecilia from Part on Farm. I want to talk to you today about growing onions from seed. I really think that growing onion from seed is one of the most financially efficient ways to grow onions because I can get 300 onion seeds for $3 to $5 depending on the variety and your supplier, where to buy 300 onion sets will probably run you between $15 to $25 depending on your varieties and those kinds of things. So really growing from seed I think is one of the most beneficial ways to start your garden. The more that you are paying to get plants started, the less financial sense it makes. So today I'm going to plant some onion seeds and show you how to get those started, and then we'll follow up with a video on how to care for your onion sets and how to temper them out and plant them out into your garden. So we are here in zone 4A, just south of 3B. We're kind of on the line there. So our last frost date isn't until about May 15th. So one of the challenges of growing onions from seed is onions take 110 to 120 days roughly to produce a good sized fruit. And if I waited until after the last frost to sow my onions, I probably will get very small onions, and I like the big globe onions. So we're going to start some indoors here in February. I really could have started them in January, but we just didn't, and I would rather start them late than not start them at all. So that's what we're going to go with. Today I have just a flat, and as you can see, I've put some soil in it, but I want you to see I have about an inch of soil. And for me, one of the first things that you learn to do when you're gardening is measure parts of your hand to figure out how deep an inch is. So for me, this part of my pinky right here is about an inch. So I know that there's an inch worth of soil, so that every time I'm trying to do something, I'm not measuring or getting out a tape measure, because it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a guesstimate. In nature, when seeds fall from a tree, they don't magically get planted an inch below the soil. They might be 3/4 of an inch, they might be an inch, they might be an inch and a quarter. It's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I just wanted to show you how deep this is. I do have about an inch of soil. I'm gonna go ahead and sow my seeds, and then I'm gonna put more soil on top of it instead of pressing my seeds into this soil, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill this up with soil, and then we will get on with the rest of it. So now that I have my soil in my flat, I'm gonna go ahead and just spray it with some water. I just have a spray bottle here, and I really do think that this is the best way to water small seeds like onions and carrot seeds and those kinds of things, especially when you're first getting them started. So what I'm gonna do is just moisturize this soil so that it has that wet sort of gleam to it. It doesn't take a whole lot of water. And when you're adding your soil, I should have mentioned this earlier, when you're adding your soil to your flat, or you can use, I used a cake pan last year that was old and rusty. You can see that I have a couple layers here. This layer is just a flat, and then I have another container inside. It's inside another container because this flat has holes in it. So water will seep through. And then if I want to, I can bottom water. That's just how I set my flats up. It's up to your personal preference. If you use something like a cake pan or a plastic container of some sort, that's okay. But I would really suggest that you put drain holes in it in case you overwater, because overwatering is as big of an issue, if not a bigger issue, than underwatering plants. So now, if you look at your package instructions for your seeds, I'm gonna do some red Creole onions, and they're 110-day onion, but it tells me to sow rows 12 inches apart, which is true, when you're planting out to the garden. But right now, I'm not gonna plant them that far apart. In this flat, I will probably do 3 or 4 rows, and then it tells us to sow 3 inches apart. I'm gonna do it about every 1.5 inches, and then I'll thin it out as seedlings start to come up. But you really don't need to sow them quite that far apart when you're just starting seedlings, because you're gonna transplant them out and they'll be okay. So with onion seeds, they are, you can see that, just little tiny seeds. So what I do is I am going to just put them on my hand here, and I'm just going to place them right on top of the soil where I want them. And then I'm gonna cover it with soil when I'm done planting the whole flat. So now I've sowed my seeds onto just the top of this moistened soil, and I'm gonna go ahead and add some soil over the top of them. So for these seeds, I want about 1/4 inch of soil. So for me, I know that my fingernail on my index finger is about 1/2 inch. So about half of my fingernail is about 1/4 inch of soil. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay that on top. So now we've covered all of our seeds with soil. Some people will press down on the soil. I don't care to do that. I want it really light. I want it fluffy. I want it easy for the seeds to grow through. So instead of pressing down on the soil, I'm just gonna take my spray bottle one more time and moisten the soil. And make sure that you don't want it wet. You just want it nice and moist. And then I'm gonna go ahead and place this tray actually under my grow lights. Now last year, we didn't have grow lights. So I grew my onion sets with a humidity top, just in a south-facing window, and that worked okay. But because we have the grow lights this year and I have the space under them for right now, that's how I'm gonna go ahead and do it, and just part of the experiment of gardening, I guess, is just seeing how that looks and if I think it's worth it next year to put them under the grow lights or not. So, and I did plant, you may have seen that I had like, I don't know, 10 extra seeds that didn't really fit in my rows. So I just kind of put them where the spacing wasn't super consistent. I don't worry too much about getting my spacing exactly perfect, because like I said, in nature, I don't think it's perfect. But that's it for getting them started. The seeds should start to emerge in 7 to 14 days. It is gonna depend on the temperature and the amount of sun that they're getting, or in our case, the grow lights that we're using. Our grow lights are just cheap fluorescent lights off of Amazon. And so I'm gonna put them just right above, like 1 inch or 2 above our seedlings. And then we'll continue to move them up as the seedlings grow. However, it is different depending on which kind of grow lights that you have. So some grow lights that are very intense need to be a little higher up. Some need to be a little lower. So just take that into consideration as you're placing your plants in grow lights. If you don't have grow lights and you don't have a humidity top to put over this, what I would suggest is if you can just take clear plastic like saran wrap and put it over the top of this with some holes poked in it, that will help keep the humidity in as well. And that works really well. But when your seedlings start to come up, obviously you're gonna have to take that off, but it does help to keep the humidity in there for the beginning of your seed starting journey. So that's as easy as it gets. And I know onion sets are really convenient because you just take them and shove them in the ground in the spring, but this is a lot more financially efficient way to grow onions. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Keep growing. Have a great day.